Is it weird to be excited about new tire design? I'm oddly stoked to get more miles in testing on our new Kenda Cleaver AT2s. It's a great solution for a lot of SUVs, light truck, and 4x4 owners. It's in the snow or just about most off-road environments. They're not designed for like hardcore rock crawling or mud bogging, obviously, but just for all-around trail use and street use. We're super excited about them. The interlocking tread blocks offer great traction, and there's a Kenda optimized system to produce exceptional on-road noise results, meaning they are super quiet. They have a 50,000 mile limited warranty for LT applications and a 60,000 mile warranty for P-metric fitments. That's right, an all-terrain with a 60,000 mile tread guarantee warranty. So anyway, check them out, the new Cleaver ATs. We'll be doing more posts up on them and more testing as the weeks roll on. So check them out. All right, welcome to the show. We are here with a very special guest and good friend of mine, dear friend. Man, we've been through the highs and lows together. Andrew Willoughby.
Hello.
We're gonna kind of get into your life and your story a little bit, but you have a design studio. What would you call it? A design studio?
Yeah, branding studio.
Branding studio. Called Radtron. Pretty fresh. Also played a very key role. He's on our New Legend team. It's brought a lot of very powerful things to the team around this branding process. So I want to take us on a little bit of a journey. So that's Andrew in a nutshell. You live in Nashville. Couple kids.
Yeah, couple kids.
Great little kids.
Yeah.
Wife.
Yes. She was involved.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we'll kind of weave more of that. So I want to take us back to the Overland Expo 2 years ago.
2018.
2018, right?
Yeah.
2018. You show up, and we had this combo trip, like where we explored Moab for a few days. Drove to the expo, which is in Flagstaff, Arizona. Drove to Phoenix. Like, we're talking a pretty healthy road trip. Probably 9-10 days on the road.
Yeah, it was over a week for sure. That was the red 800, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I drove that one behind.
Yeah.
You.
Great stuff.
In the 80.
Yeah, great stuff. So, but what I want to get into is a very specific, interesting thing. I think you know where I'm going. Andrew chose to wear a white outfit.
My uniform.
Yeah, a uniform. So dig into that a little bit.
Okay.
Because there's a lot more behind. And we'll, if you're watching this on video, we'll put a picture up of Andrew's outfit.
Yeah.
Bold move.
Yeah.
What went into that? And like, what motivated that? What does style have to do with our own kind of branding, how we carry and perceive ourselves? Let's kind of start that conversation.
Yeah, okay, so...
Weird place to start. Andrew yesterday was like, what are we going to talk about?
Oh, man.
And I doubt he thought...
Yeah, I didn't see that one coming. It could have been a lot. So, I guess, first things first, I've always had... I grew up road tripping. Our family was always on the road. I grew up in the back seat of a 95 Ford Aerostar.
Sweet.
Not by choice.
Where all the seats fold down, it's like a bed in the back.
Yeah, I mean, it could.
It could.
We never did that. It's me and my brother and eventually my sister after that. But, and your kids are familiar with this as well. Having like everyone kind of had their own system.
Yeah.
And so mine from early childhood was, I always had a bag with me. Like mine's over there right now, but I always had a bag with me. I always had a book. I would always bring one book, and it was almost always like a, adventure novel, kind of like, the Indiana Jones books, Hardy Boys, something like that. No, I mean this was just like city roads.
Okay.
You know, but like if I was in a car for more than 12 hours.
A hatchet. I mean like
The book, yeah.
He's all back there.
Rolling up, yeah. In the back seat. No, so that kind of philosophy has always, I've always thought about what is my experience going to be like for my personal space on a road trip.
Interesting.
Beyond just like, I'm going to need a toothbrush and like an extra change of clothes because it's going to be this weather or whatever.
And where do you think that came from? Like, because that's a very, how do you say that again? Like, you were interested in your own,
in my personal,
the experience of your personal space.
I was out of necessity at the time as a kid because these road trips were like 12 plus hours. Oh. And so you like, you know, it messes with a kid's brain quite a bit if you're just like, luckily I had my own bench seat in the back. And so I had like kind of things mapped out how I liked it. And so yeah, you don't have much choice than to kind of build your immediate surroundings the way you want it. And that's cool. Like my brother did it his own way, I did it my way. You get to the point where you learn the trick of like the floor is your like sleeping space and the bench is your play space.
Yeah. And real quick, so this is your 32?
Yeah, 31.
31. So like, is this definitely pre any device?
Yeah, I remember.
Like do you have like were you just in your own thoughts, in your own headspace, or did you have like distracting pieces?
There wasn't a lot of entertainment
yeah.
devices in our family at that
point. Like a Discman. What is it, MP3 players at the time? Or
no. No, I remember I had a tape player.
Okay.
Some headphones.
Okay.
Around that.
Like this kind of tape player? Like
well, at first there was like the Fisher Price recorder with a microphone. My brother and I did a radio show.
That's awesome.
Direct to cassette.
That's awesome.
Limited to one issue per, you know. But you know, I remember eventually we were a bit older, got a game, like the first Game Boy. But anyways, it was mostly like books, and that's why I learned like a lot of like drawing, that kind of making stuff in the back, collecting, you know, whatever I could find on you know on the rope. Anyways, to get back to the uniform, that whole thing kind of like morphed eventually as I got older. Buzzing?
Sorry, no. So if you're watching on video, we are in our shop. Like, this is our finishing bay, and there's like a giant air compressor in here.
It'll turn on,
and then this is on like at the peak of our intriguing conversation is going to be like,
yeah.
Okay, so I just shut that off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But so have you ever seen? So I'm gonna fast forward, just cut to the chase.
But I do think that's a significant piece, and I've known you for a while, but I didn't. You've never articulated it like that, because you're a very like particular guy. But the defining the experience of your personal space is a pretty powerful concept.
Yeah, that's really important because on a trip, like it's pretty. Everyone knows in my family I have like pretty particular about my feet. Like if I will always have the right number pair of socks. But I might not change anything else.
Right. That's right.
But I just know from experience, I've done it enough to know that if there are some unnecessary stressors or easy things to get, like there are times that I will never open the book that I read, but I know that I always have an adventure book with me on a road trip because I don't know, I grew up watching Indiana Jones and it was really important.
Yeah.
Anyways, So to cut to the chase with the uniform, have you ever watched any, like the first year they did the Dakar? Like, so I remember when I discovered like old school desert racing, especially internationally, and I was fascinated as a kid seeing the teams in their all white and maybe like their team patch or whatever. And, you know, I got into like a while back, got into the whole like raw denim thing and like having nice quality things that tell a story. Like my computer bag that I carry is like 15 years old, and like having things that wear is cool to me. Like that's not a new concept, but at some point I got to thinking about like just the physical properties of what would the reverse of that be. So instead of a reductive like raw denim fades, like the blue dye is leaving the denim to reveal fades. Okay. What's the reverse of that? Start with all white, and whatever you come home with.
Because you can educate. Andrew, you have a history also of like being in the clothing sphere.
Yeah.
So take a second to educate us on raw denim. Is raw denim white?
No. Raw. Is it
a dyeing process, or is it like so you're saying it's not reductive, like the blue leaving, but it's starting with white. Is it dyed? I'm sorry to sound so ignorant.
Yeah. Okay. So raw denim, or it's also called dry denim sometimes, is so when you go to let's see, when you go to Walmart and pick up your Wranglers,
Goodfellas.
Yeah. Your Rustlers.
Okay.
That denim has gone through a process of washing, and it's meant to make them, one, more wearable right off the bat, and two, it doesn't get dye all over your grandma's white couch. It's just they're pre-washed. Raw denim is not washed.
Okay.
There's a lot of technicalities with like sanforized, unsanforized, all that. It's basically the way they used to do it a long time ago. Like when my grandpa was growing up, and he got his one pair of jeans a year.
Yes.
Working on the farm, it's just the way they made them, and it's become really trendy and popular recent years. But a big part of why people like them is they tell a story as you wear them. So when you buy like pre-faded jeans, it's just like a look. Yes. When you buy raw denim, they're like stark blue,
and there's a price to pay because they're typically thicker.
Yeah, the average weight of the denim is heavier,
and they are like my experience with them, which I love my raw denim jeans, but it takes like a few months, like I don't know, weeks at least, but maybe more.
They're uncomfortable.
Start fitting into your body and stretching where they need to stretch.
By modern standards, they're more uncomfortable than other pairs of jeans, but you break through that literally.
That's right.
And
that's right.
It's like a nice pair of leather boots. Like they're gonna fit like the box they came in when you put them on. But a year down the road, if anyone else puts those shoes on, whether they could be your exact size, they're not gonna feel comfortable. But like these jeans that I'm wearing, I put them on, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm back in my jeans.
Nice, yeah.
They just fit.
Yep.
So I was thinking like the kind of reverse of that from a storytelling perspective is if you start with either natural, like undyed, because you can get denim that's never been dyed.
Okay.
And that's pretty sick. I like that.
And what color is that?
It's like a natural, like, it's cotton color.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
They're not like bleached white. But I can't remember I still have those pants and that shirt.
Yeah.
What? I think it was like 316 or something.
Okay.
Or Naked and Famous maybe. Undyed. Okay. Natural. They call it natural.
So you're interested in this, like that's interesting to me too, that you said you're interested to see that, like, so the reductive story, well, it's like this positive and negative. As the jean is wearing, it's telling, and that's like reductive.
Right.
It's telling this story that's
positive story.
Yeah. So a practical example would be like in my pocket, you can see exactly where my phone is. That's a reductive process because it's taking away the dye from the areas where it's rubbing.
But you said you had this from Dakar and this idea to go, and this is what I'm digging into because this is a unique thing that I think it's a uniqueness to you, but it's also something that's been inspiring to me, and like I think more men should think about. So this is the aspect of storytelling with something as mundane as a pair of pants, or a white shirt, and a red scarf, red bandana.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Okay, so you choose. So you say like, I want to see the which is fat. Oh, I love it. Opposite of reductive. You want to see like you're going to start with a white pair of pants on a trip that we're going wheeling.
Yep.
Road tripping.
Yeah, and I was covering that trip as a photographer.
Yes.
So, you know, laying in the mud to get. Was working with Chris.
Yeah,
Chris Cortez.
that's right.
There were some parts that we were like dirty.
Yeah, any good photographer, that should be a measure of a good photographer, is like not afraid to get dirty. And when you work with good photographers, the shot is what matters. And so like whether it's like a dangerous position or like hanging off the roof rack or like laying in the mud, it's like I appreciate that.
Yeah,
we're doing it.
Yeah, so that was the idea. Plus, I don't know. I get bored sometimes with like just everything. I don't know. Like, why not? Like, who?
Right.
I've and the thing about that. So the original concept was I was going to do that per massive trip.
Yeah.
And the idea was like, at the end of the trip, like either what I wanted to do was like do a print, like put the clothes, stage them kind of like on the ground.
Yes.
Make a cool shot.
Did you ever do that?
No, I need to. I will.
Okay.
And then do a 1-to-1 ratio, actual size, super high quality art print, frame it.
Yeah, rad.
Sign in at the bottom. Like, it's a time capsule of that trip, and you see like there's a huge mud spray like right here, and I know where that came from.
That's
I
awesome.
remember that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of an art project. It was kind of just like a fun thing to do, something that I thought about, but it became I did that 3 or 4 more trips to the point where somebody texted me. I wasn't on a trip and somebody was wearing white.
Yeah.
Does it live?
Yeah, or Lily wanted too.
And they were like carrying the torch.
Yes.
But
so like, because this is another interesting, as a community and people listening, I think this is an apt conversation because we care about things that are not necessarily just practical. Yeah. Because there's a certain, and this is interesting to like, you mentioned your grandpa. I don't think your grandpa was like, I want my clothes to tell a story.
No way,
dude just needed a pair of pants.
Yeah.
But what was available at the time, like fast disposable fashion, like wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
In your grandpa in the 40s and 50s, and 60s even. I think we started seeing that in the 70s, like probably in the introduction of the 70s, where like kind of more timeless fashion. It started getting more trendy fashion. Like we're doing research for this very exciting project with New Legend about an era specific period correct expedition, of sorts. And I was doing research on clothing from 1972, and I was really disappointed. I was like, 72, bro, it's going to be like Filson, it's going to be all like, no, it was like pre-disco, hippie disco.
Yeah.
And just Google it. Like if you're bored, just Google like 1972 fashion. You'll see like very flamboyant, Freddie Mercury, almost vibe like, and I'm like, that's not what I was thinking. So then I went back. I'm like, let's do 1963 kind of. And then you start seeing like the flannels and the rugged jeans and overall, like you start going like, oh, that's the era. So I think there was a shift in that early 70s to trendy. I know like the 50s had like its trendy fashion.
Yeah.
They're still based on
utility and necessity.
That's right.
Like, and I think that's the big. Obviously, I wasn't there, but seems like the luxury of choice became a thing.
Okay.
Like, you had the choice and the option, and like the department stores were kicking up, and that whole era of like, there was expendable income more so. Like that was the, you know, the family road trip, American road trip was in full swing and had been for a while. And so you're getting nicer cars, you have a choice of clothing, that kind of stuff. I think that's why. Like the luxury of choice seems like a...
Because when I met you, this is an interesting journey. I've probably for the past, I've told this story maybe before on the podcast, but like 25 years ago, when I moved to California, met my wife, we drove to Oregon and I saw Mount Shasta. And this, I'll fast forward through it, but, and I'm like, I understood what like the early pioneers felt. Cause I was from the East Coast. There's no big mountains on the East Coast. And I come to California and I like, whoa, like it was my first time seeing the ocean. I grew up on the Atlantic, but like, so the ocean was rad. But like I saw this monolith of a mountain, like Rainier kind of has that vibe and Shasta has that vibe. And I'm like, what is that? I gotta get up that thing. So like, it started this like couple year pursuit of like rallying up my buddies and like not buying some books and not knowing anything about mountaineering. But like, we're gonna go do that and I want to do it in the winter. Like, so we did it in like February, March, which is like early spring, late winter, which is 100% snow. And having no climbing experience, it was kind of dumb, but it was adventure and I loved it. But I'll fast forward the journey. I started I went from like, I worked at the Gap in high school. So I was moderately into fashion. Like I cared about what I looked like, which is an interesting thing. Like as part of that personal storytelling, why do some people value fashion and style while other people don't? And some people are very trendy. Some people are that's a whole fascinating other discussion. But anyway, I discovered the North Face and it was like, what is this technical clothing? And why is it so expensive? Which I understood, but I'm like, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I'm like seeing like all this stuff's made in China. Like early, like as I've learned, like early Patagonia, early North Face was all made in the U.S., but I think it was part of that movement in the 80s and late 80s and early to the 90s of like the exportation of manufacturing from America to overseas, particularly China. Does that seem to make sense? Timing wise, I'm sure probably earlier, but so I was just like, dude, I'm gonna pay $400 for a jacket that was made like in a sweatshop in China. Like, doesn't feel right. So anyway, just started this exploration of American-made goods. But life went on. I had kids. I was busy, so I bought I bought the best. Like it happened to be like Austrian and Italian, made mountaineering stuff. And I still have it today. And some like early like outdoor designs. But when they were made, it was handmade in Oregon. Dude, cool stuff. So I still have that stuff. But anyway, started this journey. Fast forward, moved from California to Iowa, raising kids. Like when you're raising kids in a family and have no money, it's like spending a lot of money on clothes. And there wasn't really any avenue I wasn't into high fashion. But like finding an American-made denim company in the early 2000s was difficult. At least I didn't know.
From my knowledge, they would have existed, but they weren't on the radar of like it wasn't the trend. That wasn't a popular thing, at least compared to now.
Well, I think is it would you call it a trend or would you call it a set of value guides?
No, for sure. Right now, in the last. I think it's a trend. Because just the fact that the number of denim companies that are less than 8 years old, or 8 or 10 years old, and the ones that have come and gone. And I get what you're saying about it is a values thing from the consumer side.
Yeah.
I saw it and still see it to a certain extent as a fashion trend because it has become more prominent. Like you can go,
that makes sense.
You can go get some, I think it's like Goodfellow or whatever. You can get Target salvage denim for $28. Like, and it's,
I see what you're saying.
you know, that shouldn't, that's life. That's just the way it works. Yeah. And it's that, so that's how I see it, is like, it's become trendy, but to that end, it's brought that, philosophy and set of values to a lot more people. Because especially guys my age who got into it, heard about it, was kind of similar, like, why is it so expensive? Being inquisitive and wanting to be knowledgeable, and it works for some people, and for others it doesn't. But
and just as, again, tying into the same conversation about how we met and your influence in my life, and I think even on our shop to an extent. So I'd heard about this brand like Iron and Resin. So I'm again in the Midwest, and I hear about this guy Tom who's doing some cool stuff in Ventura, and I like really resonated with that because I was into motorcycles and vintage 4x4s. I'm like, and I love surfing. Yeah. So I'm like, this is speaking my language, but I never went and visited the store because this is, I don't know, 5 years ago. But then I met you there was this new men's boutique, men's store that opened in Des Moines. Yeah. And I just remember that first time walking in there and meeting you and the guys and being like, I'm home. Like, I found my place. Like, a place that cares about where it's made, how it's made. Like this idea of like heritage made, because there's such a correlation between that and vintage and Scouts, like our vintage 4x4s. Vintage, and you know that tagline, like, they don't make them like they used to. Yeah. I don't think that's true. I think that's kind of a good thing that they don't make them like they used to, because a lot of stuff that they made was crappy.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you get like we talk about this a lot, the romance of vintage clothing and the reality of vintage clothing. Yeah. For modern folks is often doesn't add up. Like, I've found tons of just sweet jackets that, like, man, why don't they make them like this anymore? And then you put it on, it's like, oh yeah, that's why they don't make them like this
for
anymore.
Sure. But what's beautiful about and again, very similar in vintage 4x4 world, is like, okay, I know I'm going to offend a lot of people right now. The International 345, don't do it. Despite how many people think that's the best engine ever made. Yeah. Guess what? It's not the best engine ever made. The small block Chevy 350, the 320, the venerable 327, not the best engine ever made. Yeah. They were good for their time. Yeah. Maybe average, better at certain things than others, but there's a reason.
I mean, that should be enough.
That's right. That's right. I agree with you. We're going to get to your new project on this pathway of being a man in the 21st century. So I think it is tied together. But so of heritage made, so stuff that's made to last rather than like disposable fast fashion. So let's say that's a great carryover, like this kind of ethically made, quality first perspective on fashion. And I think that's what people are resonating with, and they're taking some of the old designs, but they're interpreting it to like fit better and to...
Yeah. I mean, Freedom comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean,
for sure. That's the logical progression of the human condition, right? Like progress. Like, take what you like and apply it to what you need, and just keep going. Make it better.
How much of this? I'm glad you brought that up. How much of a part though of, because I see, and the older I get, I'm seeing more things. Like progress is like this almost like damning quality to humans. Like we have to progress, but it's the whole climate change thing, right? Like we're progressing, making things better for like the planet is a more livable place than it's ever been. As far as like if you look at like poverty rates globally, like we're at the lowest poverty rates ever in human history now. But that progress comes at a cost. Environmental cost, labor cost, there's all these costs to progress. But how much of progress is this natural cycle of reverting back? Like we don't like the progress we're making. We want to go back because this is the whole thing is driving our business right now. It's like, I know you see it in vintage clothing, vintage 4x4s, vinyl, like you name it. People like wanting to learn how to cook, homesteading, like the more invasive, and we've talked about this on the show, but the more invasive technology is, the more people want to revert to like simple skills, traditional things. But it carries with it that like not just the baggage, but the good things from learning and advancing.
Yeah.
Your turn.
I don't know. It seems like, I don't know, it seems so naively simple to me. Like you just, it's all, there's no universal like truth, I guess. I guess a better way to say it is like, I'm happy kind of forging it's my personal, it goes back to like I'm thinking about my personal experience. Maybe that's really, it doesn't end there, but that's my primary, like, that's what I have control over. And like me and my family, and like, because we have, I know this is like super simple and maybe not where we were going with the conversation, but I think it's pretty popular to have a balanced life of vintage and modern tech, like, but
that wasn't the case 15 years ago.
Yeah, right.
So I think, because what's interesting is you're a really unique guy. That's why I love hanging out with you. Your family's rad. But like, so as much as there's that like personal story and uniqueness, let's bring it into not only, and I think there are like pioneers in setting trends, which I hate talking about it like that, but it's just, but it's interesting because the same journey that you're on happens to be a lot of other people your age are on that same journey.
Yeah.
Let's bring that around to this new. So you've developed a personal experience around whether it's like you playing guitar or your art or your photography, to clothing, to the way you dress, and like now there's this new addition to your family. So tell us about your journey with getting a Scout. And why is it important? What was appealing? I would say, like, listen, do you have, you're not like to the world standard, to the world standard, you're a wealthy guy.
Yeah.
But it's not like you just have money floating out of your pockets like it's water.
No, that's
true. You're going like, I got nothing better to do than go buy a Scout.
That's true.
But there's something appealing, almost dare I say, necessary to Andrew's health and well-being and journey to get this old truck.
Yes. Okay.
And that, my friend, is where you're not alone. But like, so let's hear your perspective, your unique perspective on why that's important. Because I think it'll speak to a lot of people that are feeling similar things to what you felt in the last few years of this journey.
I gotcha. Okay. So, where to start? I guess we'll just start with the truck story, like how it came to us. I guess we now have 1977 Traveler and
Scout Traveler, which is, for those of you that don't know, it's a 118-inch wheelbase.
It's 18 inches longer than a Scout 2, and that, if I'm right, this in front of the rear wheel well behind the door is kind of where it got stretched.
Quick side note.
Okay.
Great book. We'll take this opportunity to do it in podcast. No, the Scout Encyclopedia.
Yes. Yeah.
John Glancy and I can't remember the other guy's name. I apologize. It is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Like, they did such a great job with that book,
I agree.
and it's fascinating whether you're into Scouts or not. But one unique thing, they had a picture of a concept Scout that was the 1/8, so it's a Traveler body, but on a 100-inch wheelbase.
No way.
Yeah, so it's just like the butt end is like super long.
So long.
It's really weird looking.
Oh man.
So International had I think they had really good designers.
Need to dig into that book.
Yeah, but anyway, so 18 inches longer in front of the rear wheel well. So behind the door, in front of the wheel well.
It's also got a fiberglass top.
As opposed to a steel top.
As opposed to steel top. It's got lift gate instead of the tailgate. Optional third row seat.
Yes.
Did it come stock with it?
I think only in the Midas editions.
Yeah, which is sick.
Yeah, they're really cool.
I want that swivel seat. It's got the
I have one, by the way.
Oh, don't tell me that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only a driver's side, though.
Okay. We'll talk about that. Oh, sick.
All right.
It arguably the world's best motor.
That's
Just
right.
kidding. The 345 V8, and so the story on the truck is my mom's side of the family and my wife's whole family is from Mississippi. Anna's, my wife's grandfather, worked at an IH dealership in the 50s and 60s.
Awesome.
And
a Scout dealership, or like a tractor, like, so heavy equipment, farm implements. Yeah. There's a lot of those.
Yeah. I didn't, because I was trying to cross-reference that in the owner's manual, because in the back of your Scout owner's manual has the list of all the dealerships.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
But I think it's Scout specific.
Yeah, right.
Because their little town was like super rural in the Delta.
But I think you could argue that like a lot of small towns had a small IH implement dealer, which just meant they had access to, they might have only had one thing in stock, or like a tractor.
Yeah, right.
But that's pretty
part
cool.
Of the network.
Part of our, like that network was robust.
Yeah.
Did they have any Scouts that they would dabble in?
I gotta fact check this with her grandfather, but I thought I heard him say that he put the AC like in this truck.
Really? Back at, which I believe.
Yeah. I think that's what he said.
So I was going to say, in your Traveler, that is a factory AC unit, but that could have easily been ordered through the parts department and installed at the dealer.
I think that was his job.
Cool,
one of his
jobs.
That's right. So anyways, maybe 18 months ago, something like that, 18 months ago, we were visiting, and he knew that I had been doing some, I think I had just come back from a photo shoot with you guys or something like that, and I was telling him about it. And he's like, hey, I think there's a Scout up the road, like just off the highway. And I was like, you don't say. So we went to look at it. When we got there, he was like, oh, I know this Scout. I know the guy that owns this.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, he was like, yeah, he just parks it here. We were just going to look at it and admire it. And I took some pictures.
Yeah, right.
And every time we went to visit, I would either put the kids to bed and go out and look at it. Like it's a mile up the road or whatever.
Yeah.
Eventually, 18 months later, got a call from Anna's grandfather, and I answered the phone. I was like, hey, how's it going? And all he said was, you want a Scout?
Mm.
And I said, talk to me.
Yeah, talk to me.
So
Talk to me, Gramps.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
So the guy was ready to sell. He knew that we were interested. We made the deal like right there and then on the phone.
That was just recently, right?
Yeah, that was about a month ago. I knew that I knew I wanted a Traveler. I knew what to look for enough to put an offer in on one, fair price. Like I said, I had looked at it in depth like 2 or 3 times before that. It was in good shape. I sent you some pictures just to kind of, make sure.
And really quick, I think I just realized that my microphone is not on.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude.
New patrol, dude. I'm gonna do something here real quick. Apologize. This is what you get when you don't have a technical person on the staff.
Yeah, where's the IT guy?
Hello? Check, check. Okay, so I'm sure that's gonna be terrible.
So we
Anyway, so like technical error, I just realized that my microphone wasn't on. So we're gonna keep going with this conversation.
people ain't gonna like that.
People ain't gonna like that, but yeah, we'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome to the New Legend Podcast. Here with Andrew Willoughby, who has been telling his story. And yeah, so anyway, we're talking about your journey into getting your 1977 Scout Traveler. So
Yes.
Grandpa calls, stoked out of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You make a deal. How long ago was this? A couple weeks ago?
About a month. We've had it for about a month.
Okay.
So yeah, I got the truck. But okay, so kind of going back to your initial question, kind of why we were interested.
Well, let's put it just real quick, because interested is like, I think, too soft of a word.
Yeah, I was pretty obsessed.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of digging into. I do want to hear more about the Traveler.
Yeah.
But what about, because like I would say you are, you're not like, I'm not judging you.
Let me have it.
But you're not like the quote unquote car guy.
No, that is
who
true.
like grew up with a wrench in his hand.
That's true.
And grease on your face and
Yeah.
transmission fluid in your hair.
Yeah.
And so I think is there some connection, a yearning in the spirit of the modern man to like approach a certain level of competence or tangible skill,
Yeah.
whether it's building a Windsor chair or like learning to fix a Scout or crafting some leather,
Yeah.
a wallet or something
Right. Yeah.
that takes it beyond just interest.
Yes. So I grew up not, I didn't get a lot of help or, nobody in my family besides my grandfather, who was a Longhorn rancher, really had any interest whatsoever in vehicles, automotive or, So my first experience with anything like that was, my first car was...
Yeah, I forgot to ask you.
I know. I've been thinking about it all morning. First car was a 1965 Mustang, Ford Mustang.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I think you probably told me that. When did you score that?
I was living in Mississippi at my grandparents' and saw one. I don't know, it was like an hour away, and told my grandpa, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't know." And I can't remember exactly how I convinced him. I think my grandma had something to do with it.
Okay.
We're going through a hard time, and she kind of felt bad for me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
Get a Mustang.
so help. And had no business whatsoever getting an old car, because I definitely didn't have the money, didn't have the time. I did it just because it looked cool sitting in the driveway, and maybe that was enough to have it. But
I love what you said earlier, like the romance of it and the reality of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Often two very different things.
Yeah, because stuff was like, it was in good shape, but it had transmission problems.
Did it have a V8 or a 6-cylinder?
No, dude, straight six.
Straight six.
It was like, I learned real quick, and I wasn't looking for that. Like, I was never like a go fast or die kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really slow. But there's some funny stories about how terrible it was. But I knew instantly the first time I sat in it that, and I was trying to think this morning if I had any experience in older vehicles, like physically being in older vehicles before then. I can't remember that. That may have been the first time. Besides my grandpa's work trucks, which were always F-250s, like as early as like, I don't know, late 80s or something.
Right. But they were never like vintage. They were always just of the day.
Nowadays it would be like a maybe classic 4x4, like
it would be like a 2003 Chevy pickup, right? Today, like a 15.
By today's standard, probably. Yeah. So the first time I got in,
sure, cool. Square body Chevy is, or an old Ford, 80s Ford is cool.
Yeah, but the first time I got in the Mustang, instantly it was like middle of the summer, so it was hot, and you sit in it, and the smell instantly, it just smelled like an old car. Like I had never smelled an old car. This is an old cool car smell. Hand crank windows,
just rolling around in it.
Just like getting it all over my body. No, the way it handled, driving it, everything about the experience of owning that car.
Was it bliss like the first time you started it and just drove like
absolutely? Yeah. So we went to pick it up. We drove it to a pizza place in, that would have been Laurel. No. I think it was in Laurel, Mississippi. And I remember the reason we picked the pizza place is because there was a parking spot next to the window. And we parked it.
Oh, yeah.
So that we could sit in the bench in the booth and eat our pizza while we looked at the car.
And I think that's like a guilty pleasure that a lot of classic car people do. I've done it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Especially when it's new. Just like, is it still there?
I just want to look at it. Yeah. Again, hindsight, like I was an 18-year-old kid that had no business working on, which is different now because I'm at the point where, for a number of reasons, I'm more stable in every way.
Right, of course.
Mentally, financially, maybe not physically, but like at the time, things were going wrong with the truck that I was not able to responsibly
to the car
manage. Yeah.
Like
I had no idea what was going on with the transmission.
So wait, so you drove it to the pizza place and life is good.
Yeah.
And then how quickly after that did you realize there's something wrong?
Maybe 6 months.
Okay, so that's a pretty good run.
Yeah. From what I remember, I ended up driving it more like a standard than an automatic.
Yeah, but it was an automatic.
It was
you had to manually shift it.
Yeah. Some wires got crossed in a bad way. So my commute to work was about 45 minutes in the mornings, and it was bumper to bumper traffic, if you can believe it, in Mississippi.
Yeah, which is so terrible for that car. Manual steering, manual brakes.
Right.
6-cylinder, no AC.
And then what made it worse was, there's no convenient place to stop for 45 minutes, but you're in traffic, you're trying to get to work, and it's not just interstate, so it's a lot of turning and navigating through neighborhoods and stuff. For some amazing reason, some wires got twisted up in a way that if I turned the wheel,
Oh, really?
past like 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, the horn was on. Constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly.
That's hilarious.
And so,
And you didn't have to, like, what's really funny about, how long did you live with it like that?
I can't remember. I remember being at work, popping the hood, and locating the horn and just removing everything attached to the horn.
Right.
I don't remember if it was that morning or not.
Okay, that's funny.
But it was,
That's hilarious.
But, stuff like that happening and not being in the place mentally
Right.
or financially to do anything about
Well,
it.
and so that's funny because so many scouts have that imprint on their past. Is like, instead of like going, I'm going to fix the horn by taking the steering column apart, replacing the part, we just removed said horn.
Yeah.
And so many scouts like have a problem, and let's just remove the limb.
Yeah.
Put the tourniquet on it.
Yep.
And remove the limb.
That is really, I've come across that with the majority of the vintage vehicles that I've either owned or worked on or whatever, like my KZ that I used to have, 1982 KZ 440.
It's a good bike.
Sweet bike. It was 100% stock except the air filter. And for some reason, that was super common in 1992 or whenever to like just yank that thing. And nothing about that bike wanted to work the way it should without an air filter.
Right.
Or the airbox.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was probably some 18-year-old kid that didn't know what he was doing.
Yes. At what point did you start? Because so your first car was a classic Mustang. At what point did you start to say like, I want a vintage 4x4? What about the like? What was the appeal about a 4x4? Like what?
That didn't happen until
envision?
much later. And I think it was partly because of like not a lot of confidence in. I feel like vintage 4x4 is. And I don't have a ton of experience in like classic muscle cars or anything, but I feel like the level of competence and experience required to maintain and run a vintage 4x4 is closer to the pinnacle of requirements than
I like
a stock old school Mustang. It's just it's just like my perspective.
Yeah, I think
like,
that's a good, fair perspective.
when you leave the pavement, it's
That's
a whole
right.
nother like in addition to what you're doing on day to day. You leave the pavement, it adds some crickets.
No. Yeah, there are crickets. But that like there's certainly a two-dimensional aspect to driving a car.
And that was always really intimidating to me because I was like, I don't even know anything about my super sick 2003 Toyota Sequoia.
Yeah, that's right.
Like I know enough about vehicles now to like be responsibly maintaining them, but didn't grow up a car guy. There's no way around it. Like working with you guys is what having more hands-on experience and knowing people that owned vintage 4x4s kind of planted the seed to think like it's not rocket science. It is a lot of work and information and experience required, but I feel like I'm up for it.
And one thing you said to me a couple of days ago was like, I think you literally said this Scout and the process and what it means, not just the physical machine, but the things you've envisioned for your family, for your children, the mechanical exploration has like changed your life.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely has.
That's deep. That's like a pretty powerful statement.
Yeah, and it's not figuratively like that. It's like everything that I've been a part, like the businesses that I've been a part of, hobbies have always revolved around making.
Where's your parts manual?
My bag.
Okay, I'll have to show it later.
Okay.
And you're super excited about, so you got like the service manual.
Yeah.
And then now we have the accompanying parts manual.
Yeah, a little PSA, you're going to want both.
Yeah.
Didn't realize that.
Sorry to interrupt, break your train of thought. Keep going. Very good.
So I've always been somebody that likes, if I'm not using my hands doing stuff, it's a problem. Like it gets to the point where I finally had to admit in my recent years, it does actually, for me personally, have a mental impact. Like if I'm inside all the time on doing my computer stuff, grinding, and I don't have like a physical outlet for making stuff, or at least working on something or using my hands to do stuff, it affects me in a negative way. It affects kind of by proxy my family, and
that's actually a very insightful thing that I've never really connected the dots before. But would you liken that? You're just not like a gym guy.
No.
Like I'm not either. But like, so I think there are types that like you yearn for like some physical, some outlet that's physical in the same way that maybe someone who's more sports oriented, who works an office job, like they have to go to the gym. They have to like, it's part of their mental well-being.
Yeah, my brother is the perfect example and complement to that. Like I have always been like wanting to make stuff, do stuff with my hands, whatever. He relies on, like he has to go to the gym, and that's his physical outlet. And so, like I have had jobs where it was a pretty solid balance of like hands and brain kind of stuff. Not, like design, like say design and fabrication. Like there were jobs that I had where I was doing both, and that's the dream. That's the sweet spot. But
I'm paying attention to you, but I want to show you. Like you posted this on your Instagram account, which is
Dolly the Scout.
Dolly the Scout. So I'm going to show this to the GoPros real quick. This picture, when you sent me this picture, which is like you with a greasy hand and a fuel pump in your hand.
Yeah.
Like first off, knowing you, the first thing that came to my mind was Indiana Jones Temple of Doom.
Oh yeah.
When the priest, the priest like
the heart
out.
The heart.
This has this like very heart type of look, but and I could just feel through the image and through our text exchange like the pride of like,
dude, yeah, for sure.
Not only did I fought to get this thing off, but like I figured out how to get this stripped hard line off. And I got it in. I installed the pump in 8 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, and again, like I'm not oblivious to the fact that people have been like, there are people that grow up doing this when they're like 6 years old. That just wasn't my life. Like that wasn't my background. So, identifying, problem solving, and doing maintenance on an old vehicle, which I should say, like I did have a few years experience doing this on small Japanese motor,
right? Yeah,
motorcycles. So I understand the basic fundamental concepts, and I think that's important. And the trials and tribulations I went through getting that KZ running and it being my daily driver for work for a year. I rode that every day for a year.
That's awesome.
In Iowa. Had a big part. So there are these baby steps that I've been catching up on. So I'm in the right spot to take it to the next level, which is a vintage 4x4.
Yeah.
And like, it's all I can think about. I love it. Family's on board. Like, my wife was kind of like, she's incredibly super supportive. Like,
I was going to ask you
very
about
supportive.
Anna's journey. Also not like a car gal, like whatever, but like but she speaks very, like when she speaks about the Scout, it's definitely like an us thing, like you and her, family thing.
Yeah.
And she's excited about it.
Yeah.
So what was that journey, and what does she envision? Like why is she excited about it? Why is it important to her?
Well, first and foremost, because it's important to me, and we put a lot of emphasis between the two of us on understanding the needs and desires of each other. And what we're lucky in the fact that for the most part, the core decision-making fundamental element to our decision-making process is almost always revolved around what's best for the family.
Yeah, I love that.
So it would be a totally different situation if I was like super obsessed with 40-foot yachts and, you know,
or even a motorcycle. I mean, because a motorcycle is good for you, which is by
that's
proxy
that's a better example.
But it's an individual thing.
That's a better example. Yeah.
Because I was gonna say the 40-foot yacht.
She'd be into that.
That would be like,
yeah. No, yeah, motorcycle. That's a good example. But so it's first and foremost, she's supportive. She knows that it's good for me, which is good for us. But also, I found out pretty quick, like, so I lived in Chicago for a while, and then when we lived in Des Moines, we went to the iCubs games all the time. So, we've been Cubs fans for a few years, and so that meant I was watching a lot of baseball, like a lot, too much for the family, baseball. And at some point, she latched onto a personal aspect of one of the players. Like, in the telecast, they were talking about, like, whatever, I can't remember who it was. Somebody just had a baby or something.
okay.
Or just got, like, Kyle Bryant just got engaged or something. I don't know. Or Chris Bryant. And she was like, oh yeah, I think I saw it on Instagram. And then within a week, she had her favorite player.
Interesting.
And then from there, it was like, I followed the Cubs because... So anyways, let's apply that to the Scout. A big draw for her was, it was in a way, her grandpa never owned it, but he worked on it multiple times over 2 decades.
Yeah.
Like, he was a mechanic, he worked on that truck several times. It was almost part of the family history.
Right.
So she had some emotional attachment to the concept of bringing this truck into the family.
That's cool.
And so that mixed with, she knows that I have to have something to fixate on and do, or I kind of go downhill.
Is there a third aspect? Those are 2 great aspects. Is there a third aspect, which is another unique thing to the vintage 4x4, is the adventure that awaits?
Yeah, for sure.
Which I love that.
Yeah. We have 2 kids, 3-year-old and 18-month-old. And we are... So we're beginning to think about, like, what kind of childhood are they going to have with, like, how involved are we going to be in what stuff? And, like, Anna didn't really grow up camping that. To be honest, I didn't either.
Right.
Like, my parents, we just didn't do that. Like, I, going with family friends or, you know, once I moved out, I was camping like every other weekend for several years.
Yeah.
So I definitely got up to speed pretty quick, but I always wanted to as a kid, and we just didn't. So I'm really excited about, like, bringing my kids into that and doing things that are. I know on the podcast you've talked about, like, suffering in moderation.
Yeah.
And my daughter has, like, really latched onto the truck. She, like, helped us name it, and she, like, it's only been 2 or 3 weeks, but she wakes up in the morning and she's like, "Are we working on Dolly today?"
And something else you and I talked about. So you guys have a Honda Pilot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is she is she as connected to the Honda Pilot, or does she emotionally respond to the Honda Pilot in the same way she does to Dolly the Scout?
No way.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
They're both machines.
Yeah.
Like just transportation machines. But even a child at 3. And then I said, like, well, is it because she's connecting with you? There's probably this same thing. Like there's this connection that's inextricable between Dolly the Scout and my dad, and time with my dad.
Yeah, for sure. Because she helps. Like the 2 days that we were like doing the fuel pump, filters, fuel system, diagnosing all that kind of stuff, she was out there 80% of the time. She was
awesome.
Yeah,
with her spice grips.
With her spice grips. Yeah, I got her some spice. Well, I mean, I needed them, but
that's right.
I didn't have the like C clamp style with the flat bits.
Yeah.
So I got them
and you said she's out there like in her like tutu or something like that.
Yeah, she's got a unicorn ballerina dress, but she's got like oil on her face.
Yeah, I love it.
Like, it's perfect. I love it. It's great, and she's like pumped about it.
That's so cool, man.
And like she just wants to go out and sit in it because she knows it's different. Like she understands now. Like Dolly has these windows where you have to like work. You have to like do something to get the windows down, and she's just fascinated with everything about it.
It's like Billy, who's been on the podcast, a friend of ours in LA. He is a Scout, and he's like, he was just talking about how it's funny, like he's like modern kids, like their appendages have like devolved in such a way that they're not like they don't have the physical strength to open vintage car door handles or like crank windows. It's like they lack this muscle development. So if Della will be, she's gonna be like at 3 by the time she's just gonna develop, number one, like this core knowledge of like old analog things.
Yeah,
I was thinking about even like the odometer.
Yeah,
like, funny story. My daughter Lily, who I appreciate very much, that she used this. She was using an odometer to illustrate actually like how many listens we've had cumulatively. I think we've had, I don't know, 60,000 unique listens to the podcast. So thank you for that. Like it's kind of humbling and cool. It's still tiny.
Yeah.
But so she used this vintage odometer, but she had it like the tenths as one as a 1.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, sweetie, this only says 6,000 listens. Like we've had more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, she's like, yeah, the 10th. Like she's like the white one. I'm like, no, that's a 10th.
Right. Yeah.
It's like you got to bump it over. But like kids only know digital odometers, and they're not even really that prominent in a modern cluster. But like that, like the milestone. I remember in the Suburban when it hit 200,000 miles, like watching all the 9s roll to zeros.
Right.
It's just like this cool thing that like a lot of people won't experience.
Yeah, and it being a traveler, we were intentional about that decision. More room, and just like already thinking about how we're going to set it up for adventure. And like Della has like her, she leaves there are like little hanger hooks on the topper on the inside.
Yep.
And she's got a gold circle purse that she keeps her tools in.
Yeah.
And she hangs it up in the truck.
Awesome.
So we'll go out there, I'll open the door, she climbs up in the truck, hops, jumps on, she puts her feet on the seats. But we're working on that.
There's suburban seats.
There's no other way.
Plus there's suburban seats, it's okay.
That's true. And she like jumps in the back, like plops down on the bench in the back, like gets her purse down, gets her tools out. And so we don't do that with anything else really. Like, I tried getting her into like, we have like the Super Nintendo Mini, and so we're, but at least for the time being, she's like super into it.
And once you guys start taking those trips, like there'll be a next level of association that like my family's together, we're laughing, fighting, crying, like smiling, like we're doing something fun. We're going to the creek. We're going to like that's going to be a fun part of our journey that we'll have to will just be a part of our story. Like she doesn't really have a choice about it right now, but it's going to be rich, especially to that generation. Like these little kids grown that are raised in a technological boom, really, of digital things. To have that presence in her life of like her dad working on junk and like this old loud smelly machine.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
And that's the thing. It's like it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. I don't know if we've talked about this to us that much, but I grew up with the resounding message of like things don't make you happy, and I understand the concept of why I was taught that.
Yes,
but my rebuttal is some things do, and to me, the physical objects that I've chosen to surround myself with, I'm very particular about.
Yep.
Very, like I've curated.
Yep.
These physical things that I know are not be all end all sources of my happiness, but I like surrounding myself with specific things.
Yeah,
and
that's great, man.
My truck is one of those things now, because it is something that I fixate on, and I don't know, we rehashing the same stuff.
Yeah, it just means so much because it's not just, but I like what you said about like that's a true thing that a lot of people, especially like virtuous people, like it's not about the stuff. Yeah, but like, and one of the things I've argued for the whole time I've been a part of this business is like, no, but they do, because that truck is more than just metal and bolts. Like it means something. It connects you to something. It connects you to the past. It connects you to the future, because you're going like, you're not just living this truck like, oh, 1977. I like every time I hop in a new Scout, I drive, and I say this verbally to whoever's in the truck with me, like can you imagine like some other two dudes were driving in this truck 50 years ago, and they're like excited about where they're going, or they're frustrated, or they're having a bad day or whatever, but they're having this if these walls could talk kind of experience. Right. But then especially seeing like when we build trucks and give them to customers, or play a small part in them getting their Scout to where it needs to be to go on bigger and bigger adventures, is like there's this vast world of unknown adventure waiting. And it's like, a Subaru Outback can get you there, but there's something more adventurous, more special about the community, about these places. Like, and I dream about that all the time. I'm like, I can't wait to go to like Alaska. I can't wait to go back to Moab, dude. I've been there 6-7 times, but like I can't wait to go back to do another trail, or a longer trail, or go do the Mojave Road or whatever. But now let's do it in an older, slower vehicle, or on a Honda Trail 70, or like whatever. So that's what I think is meaningful about.
But
some people don't understand, frankly. It's like, why are you like? I just want to tap in. I know I'm over talking, but this is important stuff. Like a lot of like being on this end of the business, I've had so many conversations with guys just like yourself, and all the emotional and all those things you've talked about. It's more important than just owning a cool truck.
Yeah,
that's hard to explain to some people, and like there are a lot of dudes crying out at this interest and obsessed level. But they're like, but my wife said no. And I'm like, dude, like that's terrible. And I don't think, because I sound like their wives don't like love them or want us. I think they just don't. They've not articulated well enough like what it means.
Yeah, right.
The wife is going like, but we need diapers, and we need groceries, or we need new windows on our house. Like, what the heck do you need a Scout for?
Yeah.
Heather and I have the same conversation. Like, our house needs like. We got to paint the bathroom, but you're like down there wrenching on your Scout. And I'm like, yeah, but if I paint the bathroom, I know it gets done and it's important. And I'm not saying I won't do it, but I dread it.
Yeah.
Some dudes love working on their house. That's great.
Yeah.
But I don't like it. But I love, like, it brings me, like, I'm so happy when I can just come down the shop for 2 hours on a weekend and wrench on one of my trucks and, like, fix something. And that's hard, I think, for some, I'm not trying to gender stereotype, but I think it's a unique thing to males. I don't know a lot of females that are just like, I just can't wait to go fix my truck. I'm not saying there's not that thing, but generally speaking, a lot of guys, especially who are in like mundane jobs.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of women in but they just tend to like other, maybe different things, more people things.
Relational.
Relational things. Hanging out with their friends or doing whatever. But I don't forget a lot of guys, like that garage time is very meaningful and more than they can express, more than they know they have the ability to formulate the thoughts in words.
Yeah.
And more than like I think the people around them realize.
Yeah, and that's where I'm lucky, at least in my immediate circle, is that Anna understands that very well. And I'm also very self-aware of that fact. Like I can. I just know that about myself at this stage in my life.
Right.
But two things on that. One, I really like already about the 4x4, vintage 4x4 community is the truck is just a starting point and it's open-ended, but it's also the range and the dynamic element of like, who was it? Fred, I think Fred Williams talking on the podcast about like adventure, like what does that actually mean, and how it's so different for a lot of people.
That's right.
I'm at the point in where we're at right now. Our sense of our destination for adventure in this truck is like we're gonna hop on the Natchez Trace. We're gonna go down to the first rest stop that has a trailhead down to the creek.
Yeah.
For like a couple hours, and we're driving home. And like that doesn't appeal to a lot of people, but that's our starting point.
And that's awesome.
As opposed to like somebody else who's like planning their Alaska trip,
right?
You know.
Yeah.
But it's the same, more or less, same platform.
I agree.
And it's open ended to the point where we're gonna work our way up to really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And then number two, I got the truck, and at some point within the first week. I was talking to Anna's sister on the phone, and I was like, "Hey, because she lived in the city at the time where we bought it, so it was at her grandparents' house for a couple of days before we went to pick it up, take it back to Nashville." And I was on the phone with her, and I was like, "Dude, so when you were at your grandpa's house, did you see my truck? Did you see it?" And she's like, "Oh yeah." Oh, she's like, "Man, I'm really sorry." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And she's like, "Oh, this thing's just a piece of junk. I'm sorry." She's like, "Did you know it was that bad when you got it?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
This thing's sweet.
Yeah, and she's like, I wouldn't expect her to, but she was just like, genuinely felt bad for me and Anna that we were now stuck with this like liability.
Funny. Yeah.
And I was like, you'll see.
Yeah, you'll see. That's crazy.
But it's just different for people.
And that's totally
I love
good.
that. Like, that's great. And we're like, again, like, just that balance of like modern and vintage and being realistic. I think it's a mental thing. It's a perspective thing more than anything.
Right. And what we talked about in your journey is like, I love that you said like it's open-ended. That's a great mindset going into it, not like a closed-minded, even perspective on what the truck needs.
Yeah.
So there's two things, like there's kind of preserving the story of the Scout and honoring that story, but there's also like your definition of adventure, what you want the truck, how the truck can best serve you and your family to make memories and do what it's supposed to do.
Right.
But I love what you're not doing is going like, I never drove it. Like I just got it, but I'm going to do an LS conversion. I'm going to put a rooftop tent. And then when it's all done, then I'm going to go to the Notches Trace and go to that first rest stop and go down the creek.
Right.
A lot of dudes do that.
Yeah.
And I think, no offense to anybody, that's not the right pathway. Now, it's different if you go, I'm super busy, my business, I'm killing it in my business. I just really don't have time to work on it. So I want a good shop to build me a truck, and I want to be a part of that process. I think that's good. But just because I've had vintage 4x4s and I know what it's like. But for you as a first timer, I think it's really important to experience it for what it is.
Yeah.
And then go, this is awesome. I love breaking down and fixing it. It's a part of the adventure. Or I don't mind that, but when it breaks down and we're stuck for 4 hours and my wife and kids are crying and it's like, where the kids are crying and or the wife is crying too. I've had both. That is a deal breaker for this other. I wanted this to enable adventure, to create, not like just be a deal breaker.
That's right.
To where there's bitterness. So that means maybe when that 2 to 3 hour adventure becomes like, hey Andrew, we're going to Moab. Like we're going to drive this sucker like Manny from Atlanta. Atlanta to Moab. We're going to drive this thing for 30 hours.
Right.
And you know what? Air conditioning is periods of suffering are good.
Right.
Perpetual suffering is bad.
Yeah.
And so we're going to put good modern air conditioning in it.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? And getting 9 miles to the gallon is kind of gets old, and going 55 up a hill, I needed to do better. So we've experienced this pathway. Now we're going to we're going to embrace a little more modernity,
right,
without losing its soul.
Yeah.
All that's possible.
And I think we were talking about this early this morning, I think, but the kind of the modern vintage 4x4 guy, or like somebody my age, first timer maybe, getting into it and having, first of all, realistic expectations with like, I think at some point we were joking around where like, as soon as my Scout hits the driveway, I'm getting new paint.
Yeah.
And like laboring over like my Instagram name or, whatever. But being realistic with the expectations, and then not only for what you're going to use it for, but making sure that, like, for us, the focus is first and foremost, like, it needs to be reliable enough to facilitate the trips that we want to do. And we've already kind of outlined the parameters and the boundaries of those trips.
Yep, so I love that.
So the first phase of this truck's life in our family is going to be like 1 hour, 2 hour day trips. And that's it. And take it
some like community events, like hanging out.
Yeah. All that. I mean, that would be the top, like the limit of it. Because I'll take.
It's really good, man.
Anytime I need to go to the hardware store or whatever, Della's going to jump in and we're just going to ride together.
Scout, that's right.
But you work your way back, and that means I know, like, so right now I'm working on the fuel system. And like, for somebody that's never done that before, I think I'm really excited about it because everything that I check off the list, one, is good for the truck because it's more reliable.
Mm-hmm.
But two, I'm adding another system of knowledge and competence to my tool belt. So, if we get down the road or whatever, like I, at least at this point right now, understand enough about the fuel system to diagnose just the fuel system.
Which is great.
Because I'm going to work up from there.
I love that.
Like, when I got up here a couple days ago and I was talking to Tyler, or Ben, Luke, Tyler, you, everyone I was talking to, they were like, dude, how's the truck? And I was like, I changed the fuel pump. High five.
Yeah.
Like, I did this amazing, you just LS swapped a truck in like 24 hours? I changed the fuel pump.
Yeah.
Like, I'm super stoked about that. Yeah. But I'm realistic in knowing that, like, that's not a huge deal but again, my personal experience with the truck is that's a huge milestone, and I'm building on that.
And guess what? What's also rad is when you go to like that scout meetup and someone's like, yeah, I just am cranking it, and you're like, ejector fuel pump?
Yeah.
Like that's not a small thing to go like, I've taken a deep dive into the fuel system. I know like where the fuel filter is supposed to go. I know like what the sending unit does. I know how that sock is supposed to be oriented.
Right.
Like I know how the filler neck is such a pain in the butt to get off.
Yeah.
So I have empathy for you if you have to do your fuel, if you ever removed a fuel tank. Meaning you can have that same
just getting it back on.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have gone that quickly if you hadn't called me. It was like, hey, I just did 2.
Yeah.
This is what you got to look out for.
Yeah. So that's great, man. I'm excited for your journey. I apologize for the microphone thing. That really bums me out. So hopefully, thanks for sticking through this episode. Hopefully Michael, our producer, can work some magic and at least we can hear you.
Those levels, man.
So maybe like add in like a computer voice, like, Andrew, why did you wear white on that trip?
Yeah.
So type it in. But Andrew, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah.
I envision we'll definitely make this a regular thing because I think people will be interested in tracking along with you.
Yeah, and one more thing that I would add is this is my nature to be this way. I think I told you I've been since I was 12, 14, whatever, I've been a part of maybe 8 or 10 serious forums, online forums in a variety of obsessions over the years. And like, so that's a natural resource for me to go to and seek out. But I think it's a big part of the success that you'll have, at least for me. I'll speak from personal experience. The success that I've enjoyed already is being inquisitive and spending more time researching than, just because of the situation, all of my time has been spent researching or working on the truck, not driving the truck.
Right.
But I know from my motorcycle days, I love working on that stuff, if not more, as much as riding.
That's right.
But all that to say, like, if you have the right perspective, the right mindset to go after information, get involved with your local community or online forum or whatever, like, that's gold. That's like a wealth of knowledge that you can lean on that's going to make your experience a lot. Because if I was like wrestling with this truck by myself, it'd be horrible. I wouldn't like it.
Right.
Because it'd be so frustrating. I'd be dumping money into it, not knowing what I was doing. But, so I just encourage people, like, be inquisitive, try to figure stuff out, but don't be too good to talk to people.
Because that's how you mess stuff up. You think like, oh, it looks like it goes like this. And I understand that's the reality, but
it's just due diligence. Like,
another aspect that I appreciate about Andrew, and Andrew is an important member of our team, is like through our Anything Scout brand, it's about 3 things: supplying information, building community, and providing parts. But that education piece, education, man, I'm so passionate about education because I see so many people getting burned, and I hate that. And we're not perfect, but like, it's particularly like buying the wrong truck.
Yeah,
you bought the right truck, so that's good.
Yeah,
but so many people buy the wrong truck because it looks cool and it's not really what they needed, and then end up getting frustrated, and then they lose their stoke for the vintage 4x4, and then they just go get a Tacoma.
18-year-old Andrew would have bought the wrong truck.
Yeah.
He would not have waited 18 months for the right truck.
Right. And like seeking out wisdom and insight, and like you said. But so Andrew's going to be a good help to us developing those things. Like, hey guys, do a tech tip video on this because I'm about to tackle that. Or we need more information on the website about, like, for example, this was fascinating and interesting.
Lay it on me.
I was looking at, for wheel information, like the center bore information, because not all 5-on-5.5 wheels fit on a Scout. Because like Fords, for example, have a smaller center bore not all Fords, some Fords and some Jeeps have a smaller center bore to the wheel than
Right.
a Scout, which has a larger center bore.
5-inch.
No, it's like 4. I don't know. Like you could test this information, but I googled center bore size on a Scout 2 wheel,
Okay.
and Anything Scout's website came up
Oh, look at that.
because Luke has a whole tech library on the site that has like information about wheels and tires, what
Okay.
tire pressure to run, like
Right.
what back spacing should I use. So tap into those resources that are out there, and we definitely try our best to educate people. So because we get a lot of questions like, what back spacing should I get on my wheels? Should I get a 15? Should I get 17? Should I get 2.5 backspace? What offset should I get? What center bore? So we try to, when we get like 2 or 3 of those questions, we try to like create a page and go.
Yeah.
So props to you, Luke, and many of you that listen to the podcast and maybe like, what happened to Luke? He's still here, still doing great. He just doesn't love the podcasting medium.
He was good.
He's good. He's coming back on. Don't worry, folks. Okay. Anyway, Andrew, thank you, buddy. Let's do this on a regular basis.
Okay.
We'll keep track on your adventures.
Yeah.
Keep educating us about design and style.
Okay.
And inspiring the masses.
Sure. Yeah. You got it. No problem.
Dolly the Scout on Instagram.
Yeah.
Follow along. We're doing a good job of taking fun pictures and.
Yeah, what my intention is, each system that I tackle, I'm just going to document, just like day 12 or whatever.
Yeah,
like
love it.
to the point where at least it can be. I don't want it to be like my personal fan page of the Scout.
Right.
Like my intention would be, because what I've been looking for in my journey already is documentation and examples of how to fix stuff. That's what I need.
Cool.
I don't need more pictures of
Right. Inspiration.
broken Scouts.
Oh, okay. Or broken Scouts.
I'll take more inspiration, but
Yeah.
so that's the plan for the account.
And also, if you want to meet Andrew and Dolly the Scout, we'll be at the Nashville
yeah, that's right. October 17th.
Old Iron Off Road. They're hosting an meetup kind of gathering.
Yeah.
October 17th.
Yep.
Dolly the Scout will be there.
Yeah, that's the plan. She needs
With
some
your space turbine wheels.
Oh, dude, don't bring those up.
You should keep them.
I don't want to. We'll do a giveaway
Yeah, exactly.
if you want. $1 the
Super
Scouts.
1993 space turbines
Bumper too, man.
in a 500-pound tube bumper.
I've got 2 93 Suburban seats.
That
Anybody
come
wants
out.
them?
Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We'll check you out next time. Andrew, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, guys.